Fish Stripes Unfiltered, episode 9. We're almost there to episode 10. Back with my co-host Isaac Azout. My guy, what's up? We're gonna do some time traveling today, I guess we could say.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun episode. We're gonna reminisce about a season in particular of the past, particularly the first one of the Derek Jeter era. But it's gonna be back with you. It feels like these 2 weeks go by really quickly. So I'm happy to be here right before the new year ends. Year
Yeah, and
starts.
this is the first episode of 2022. So um I think this is the first thing you guys will be seeing in your feeds, in your pod feeds, 2022. So make sure to subscribe to YouTube, follow us on wherever you listen to your podcast, and let's get right into it, which is the player spotlight. We will be doing two players today to finish off the Marlins rotation: Jesus Luzardo and Elieser Hernandez. So let's start with Elieser. Very weird season, I would say, in my opinion. He started off pretty well first game, and then he gets injured, comes back, gets injured that same game, comes back, and he just wasn't himself. What were your thoughts on Elieser's season, Isaac?
Just unlucky, He was just injured from the get go. That mild splinter thing he had in his first start of the season against Tampa, and it took him a while to get back. And then when he did come back, he got injured running the bases in Pittsburgh. But when he was pitching decent, and he would have held on a spot for a majority of the year. So it's a shame that he had to go down as many times as he did. He looks to be a trade candidate at some point, although now I don't know because the Marlins have dealt a little bit from their pitching depth. But yeah, it was a tough season for Elieser for more reasons than one, and we'll see where he's at in spring training.
Yeah, just for more context, he had a 0.4 WAR, 1 win, 3 losses, 4.18 ERA, 11 games started and played, 51 innings pitched, 53 strikeouts, and a 1.316 WHIP. So, just not the best season for him. This isn't the Elieser we saw in 2020. And yeah, you said it correctly. This offseason, it's going to be very likely he either gets dealt or we see him in the bullpen. We saw the report that Toronto was interested in him and Pablo Lopez, and we saw the possible options coming over back to Miami. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on I guess that report? Going off of that, where do you see Elias? Because in the bullpen, he makes a lot of sense too. This guy doesn't pitch too many innings. He doesn't go deep into games like Trevor or Sandy. It makes a lot of sense, and he's injury prone, so you would be protecting him from maybe some injuries he could sustain in a longer appearance, like in the starting role.
Yeah, well, with Elieser, I think the main reason he didn't get any bullpen time this year was just to show other teams that he's a starter. He's a starter, even though I think you and I and everyone else on Fish Stripes can agree that he probably would, that slider fastball combination would probably play very well in the bullpen. But I think they just kept him as a starter because, one, he was a Rule 5 pick, so they liked him there from the get-go. And now they're just trying to, show him off for other teams that, hey, this can be your number 3, 4, 5 starter. So the report, Toronto makes a lot of sense. They're a win-now ball club that needs pitching. And, from what I've heard, I don't think Elieser going to Toronto would net Miami anything that, you or I would want. So I think he would be a supplementary piece to a guy like Pablo maybe who would go to Toronto. But we're so far away from that it's not really worth discussing now. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think Elieser would be honestly a great 7th or 8th inning guy in a bullpen.
Yeah, and he's on a cheap deal. I think he's arbitration right now, correct?
For the first time, yeah, he's going to make about $2 million this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, you could really go different ways when it comes to where you see Elieser. Definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments. Where do you see Elieser? Trade piece or bullpen? I think we all – personally, I think he's going to get traded if it's the right price because I don't think they'll go in there and try to get more prospects, although maybe a low pitching prospect would make sense after dealing away Nicholas and dealing away Nicholas. He was the only pitcher that – and Zach Thompson was as well got traded. So we'll see what happens when it comes to Elieser. And then the second guy to finish up the rotation, Jesús Luzardo, who was dealt for Starlin Marte in the 2021 trade deadline. We all remember that day. We went on Spaces for the first time after that. It was a haul. At the end of the day, it was a haul, considered a haul. Miami did pay the rest of Starlin Marte's contract, which could be a big reason why we acquired Luzardo. So your thoughts on that trade initially and then his season at the with the Marlins?
Yeah, man. I mean, at the time, we all knew the struggles that Luzardo was having, but I think the consensus was that for 5 or 6 years of Luzardo, for 2 months of Marte, was definitely the right move. Oakland sort of maybe panicked a little bit, saying like, "Hey, you know what? We're in this," and they ended up not making the postseason. But they felt they had a real shot, and Marte definitely made them better, and so they were willing to part with Jesus Luzardo. some people in the industry were surprised. Some people weren't. Some people said, Luzardo doesn't look great. And when he first came to Miami, he struggled, and he really did. He really struggled all year. He finished the year with a 6.44 ERA as a Marlin from August 2nd to October 2nd with a FIP of 5. But one thing that, I really liked was his last start of the season against Philadelphia. I was actually covering that game, and he looked phenomenal. He was making the MVP, Bryce Harper, look not very good. He made him look uncomfortable, and he went 5 innings. He struck out 11, he gave up 1 earned run. So, if that's something that'll foreshadow what he can be in 2022, that was a hell of a trade, because Luzardo has, like I said, for 6 years of Luzardo, for 2 months of Marte, I would take that any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
And I think it's fair to mention, our good buddies, Aram Layton, did interview this guy just today. It was released today. We're recording this on a Thursday, so make sure to go check it out. I'm not one to plug too much, but this is definitely one you guys should definitely listen to. This guy's, I guess, thought process through that whole season, some of the guys he talks about in 2022. But yeah, Luzardo, it's weird. He had a lot of ups, a lot of downs. I knew the first thing that Alex Carver mentioned was his control. That was an issue. And I think that's the first thing we immediately saw. This guy was just pitching a little bit out of whack in that first game against the Mets. He gave a home run off to Javi Baez. I remember that one easily. But he pitched a pretty decent game. Then in Colorado, he just got this. He got dominated. There's no other way to say it. The guys were hitting off of him. CJ Cron got homers. It was bad. And then he had that start against Cincinnati. That's another high. He had a really good start there. And then he finished it off with Philly, which I guess kept us all on high hopes. So seeing Luzardo, where do you see him next year? Bullpen starter? I think we look at it how we've looked at it with Isan in the past trades the Marlins have done, which I guess we'll get a little bit into later. Luzardo was traded for Starlin Marte, and they're going to give him all the chances possible to really get into that starting role, accommodate himself. Who cares about Max Meyer? Who cares about Jake Eater? Whoever. They're going to get this guy starting minutes. Now, if Max Meyer is pitching a lot better in AAA, I'm pulling the trigger, and I'm putting this guy, Max Meyer, over Luzardo, and I'm putting Luzardo in the bullpen. But I don't know. I see him as a good bullpen piece as well, because you got rid of Zach Thompson, who I think we all thought he would be a piece in the future in that 2022 bullpen. But where do you see Luzardo next season?
Yeah, Thompson actually had really good numbers, minus one really bad appearance that I was also covering out of the bullpen. Thompson was great. He had a sub-3 ERA. Thompson was great. Luzardo, he's going to open the season in the rotation, I would assume. 4 or 5 spot. You obviously have Sandy and Trevor, and if he's here, Pablo, 1 to 3. And then 4 and 5 is up for grabs. You have Sixto, you have Edward, you have Luzardo. Luzardo has the most major league experience of them all, so you would assume that he's going to be on there. He showed enough, I would think, to have that inside edge into spring training and into opening day to be a number 4 or 5 starter in the rotation. I don't think they're going to put him in the bullpen anytime soon, unless he just goes out in April through June and just gets demolished. He'll be in the rotation for a while for sure. Like you said, that start against Cincinnati, start against Philly. He did rack up the strikeouts. The only problem, like you mentioned with Alex Carver, mentioned it as well. He walked a ton. He walked 48 guys compared to the 98 strikeouts. So not exactly what you want to see. But if he can, Fish Stripes wrote an article about it recently. If he can fix that fastball command, he'd be a great left-handed starter who throws hard and has an insane curveball. So he'd be a starter in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. So now I think it's time to take a nice time travel, and let's go to 2018. So what we're going to be doing when it's just me and Isaac, when we don't have no guest, is we're going to be going through these seasons. So we're going to do 28 this time. So in 2 shows from now, we're going to go into 2019 season, then we'll go from there. Then I think we go a little bit into the Laureate era. So let's go right into 2018. I know, and I think it's fair enough to show the clip of how that season started. Isaac, you were there. And that pretty much set the tone of how this Marlin season was going to go. So here's the clip, folks.
Ouch.
It's still funny to this day.
And that's when Ian Happ was good, too.
Yeah, I remember watching on MLB Network. I was watching MLB Network that day, and they were saying, who's going to be the first person to hit a home run in that season? And they said Ian Happ, and look what happened. Urania hit just threw a nice shot there to Ian Happ, and he got a homer, and that pretty much set the tone for that season for the Marlins to go 63-98. I think the only positive we could go in there is that they did well at home. They were 38-43, and then away they were horrendous, 25-55. initial thoughts on that season after seeing all these trades go down. They rebuffed the minor league system a little bit. What were the positives of that season? There weren't too many to really look at, but
Well, I actually don't think there were any other than the emergence of Brian Anderson. He was coming off his little stint in 2017 with Miami, with Giancarlo and everyone still here. He was the starting third baseman from the get-go. He played in almost every single game. But yeah, like you said, Urania, that was his first of two, I believe, opening day starts, and they were both really bad. Urania got a lot of starts. Elieser was probably another positive. I think that was the first year of him. And I remember that was the first Derek Jeter opening day. Bruce Sherman, they were both sitting where Loria used to sit in the owner's seats right behind home plate. And man, that season did not bring a lot of joy. It was fun to see Cameron Maben out in the outfield, but right away you saw Brinson was just going to struggle. He rolled over to the left side every single at bat to start his career, and he was given every single opportunity a guy can be given. He played every single time, every single game, starting in center field, and he went from batting first to batting fifth to batting eighth. And boy, that season was just a disaster for him, for some of the pitchers, including Urania. Not a lot of positives, other than Cooper played pretty well, other than getting injured, and Brian Anderson was a big positive as well, and Miguel Rojas, I would say too.
yeah, and I think the biggest part about that season was them trying to reestablish the minor league system, which in 2016 to that 17 season was horrendous. There's no other way to say it. I was looking through it, and Tyler Kolek was in there. Justin Nicolino was a piece there. There's so many guys we could go through in that minor league system. It was bad. And then their biggest move was, I guess, getting Victor Mesa and Victor Mesa Jr. At the time. We look at it now, one of them has been better than the other, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to work out for them. And then Sandy Alcantara, he was in the minor league system for a bit there. So we could get into the minor league system in there for a bit, Isaac.
Yeah, no, it was a big deal. I think it was towards the end of that year is when they made those trades. That was actually a question on a Fish Stripes Live Jeopardy, was that Kyle Barral trade. They traded a few guys, I think, just to get some international bonus space and to sign those two guys because they needed to get his brother as well. And it was such a big deal to get Victor Mesa and Victor Mesa Jr. And now that the scouting reports at the time, I don't understand what was so hype about him, especially Victor, because he was definitely limited offensively, and still Pipeline had him at number one, and Mesa Jr. As pretty highly regarded as well. And there were just so many other guys on there that ended up having much better professional debuts and careers thus far. So it was interesting. Obviously, sometimes people get it wrong, and that was one of the times. But yeah, if you look back at this at the top 30 list of 2018, you see guys like James Nelson, who I think is traded to New York, and you have Braxton Lee in center field, Chris Torres, Joe Dunan, Riley Mahan, Brian Hernandez, Trevor Richards. All these guys just, either not in the organization or some of them not even in professional baseball anymore. So like Tyler Kolek, Isel Soto, Thomas Jones. It was not a good looking system other than the revamped part of it, which was, the whole Yelich Hall, which was, Brinson, Harrison, Isan, and Yamamoto, and then the Ozuna Hall, which was Sandy and Sierra and Castano as well. But other than that, it was a really depleted system.
Yeah, which is still the best hall till this day. I mean,
for sure. And something else to keep in mind, I think the Miami system really became good in the middle of the 2019 season, because that was when they acquired guys like Lewin. They acquired guys like Jesus Sanchez. Those were like the main offensive pieces.
Sixto was acquired in that offseason as well.
Sixto, yeah. So that was in the offseason, correct. So I think that was the time when it really took a shine. They could have made it better in the 2018 season. Obviously, they had hit on these trades better. But, no front office is perfect. And, that clearly showed when you're looking at this first prospect pipeline post-rebuild. Usually you like to see it a little bit better than it is now. But it worked out somewhat for the best.
And just for more hindsight, the top prospect in 2017 before Jeter and Sherman came in was Braxton Garrett. So he was already acquired by the Marlins. And the number two guy, very notable name for us Marlins fan, is Tyler Kolek. So that was the final season of the Loria era. 3 was Brian Anderson. 4 was Harlan the Marlin, Harlan Garcia. Number 5 was Dylan Peters. And in that list, you saw JT Riddle at 13, Austin Dean at 14. Cody Poteet was in there at 15. So, man, just looking at this is crazy. And you just keep going down. Justin Twine was in this at 27. So he was considered a top 30 prospect at one moment. Thomas Telis was in there at 29. So you look at that year, that final year of Loria and this season now, it's been a huge change. And I think, they made a lot. They made a lot happen. And this first season, that first 2018 season, I think we could kind of describe it as the first season to look over and see what they have, what they could use. And I think Brian Anderson was the biggest piece in that 2018 season, which really, I guess in a way, told them that guy's going to be one of the big building blocks. Because when I first looked at it, I thought it was going to be Real Muto and Bohr. I thought those guys were going to be the big building blocks of the team, but they traded Bohr that same season, if I'm correct, and Real Muto went in the offseason.
Yeah, no, I think when you just look at, like the last years of the Loria one and the Jeter, it's just two different philosophies. Loria and Sampson, they did not care about the farm system, and I'm not saying that's wrong or right. Preferably you would like to have some importance on the farm system, but they cared about the major league products and the major league product only, and they will trade guys. They had no problem trading guys like Luis Castillo for major league talent. They had no problem trading guys like Chris Paddock for guys like that. So it's just different philosophies, and we can't say one is better than the other. In Loria 2016 and 2017, Miami was close, not extremely close, but close to a playoff berth. And with Jeter in this system so far, obviously in 2020 they did make the postseason in a 60-game sprint, but they haven't really come close in any of the other 3 years. So we'll have to wait and see if all this comes to fruition. But yeah, they have that farm system from 2017 and 2018 has really come a long way to now, because their top prospects were just high draft picks. Tyler Kolek was the 2014 second overall pick, I believe it
Look
was.
where he is now in 2018. He's all
Right,
the way.
yeah, Braxton Garrett, who was their first round pick, and then you had Trevor Rogers, another first round pick the next year. And 2018, I think it was Connor Scott, and just none of those guys have really panned out. So we gotta wait and see with these guys.
Well, Trevor did pan out, so
Trevor Rogers, obviously,
and he's one of the more successful guys from that Loria era, because he was the final pick of that Loria era.
He was.
Pablo was also from Loria. He was in that
And
Seattle.
that was a controversial. Pablo was from the Loria era. And the Trevor Rogers pick was actually controversial in the draft room. I remember Craig Mish telling us a story that some people really wanted. I don't know if you can jump in and remind me of the name. They wanted Evan White from Seattle, and some guys didn't even come to work the next day because they were so upset that they chose Trevor Rogers instead. And look what Trevor Rogers has become. That was a fascinating nugget. I remember.
Yeah, just imagine if Trevor Rogers wasn't a Marlin. The first trade they made was one that I think we'll all be very happy about. It was the Caleb Smith and Garrett Cooper to Miami for Michael King, if I'm correct. It's the first one I'm seeing in the transactions page. So I guess we'll go into that trade, since we already went through the Stanton one, the Ozuna one. We went through that one in the second episode, which you guys could watch in the podcast feed, and it's also on YouTube. So we'll get into that one. That's an A+ trade in my opinion. Marlins got Cooper, who's been great, and then they get Caleb Smith, who looked like an ace. At some point, he looked like an ace. They get Starlin Marte off of from Caleb Smith. So your thoughts on the trade and how it's worked out now in 2021?
Yeah, Caleb was really good. Caleb, and obviously you guys know about Garrett Cooper, and Caleb Smith pitched really well in 2018. He pitched really well in 2019, and they sold high on Caleb Smith, which is absolutely fire. Him and Humberto Mejia for Starling Marte. So really that trade has come a long way. Michael King has potential. He's with the Yankees, and he's gonna pitch well. He's gonna be fine. But for the first trade ever of the Jeter Sherman era, that's an A trade, like you said, Kevin, and that was definitely a good one. It was one of the few really good ones, along with the Sandy one. And you can even see the Pablo Lopez one as well. But that one, Michael King for Garrett Cooper and Caleb Smith, A+ in my book.
And the first, I guess, signing was Brian Holiday. We all remember him now. It was a minor league contract, and he was invited to spring training. So he had his moments on the Marlins. Obviously, I think he's now with Baltimore Orioles. That was the last time I saw him. I think it was the 2020 season. He was there. Very interesting guy. He wasn't too good at all, but he had his moments, I would say.
Yeah, he had to play a lot more, because I think Real Muto opened the 2018 season on the IL, on the DL back then, I think it was called.
Yeah, correct.
He had to play a lot more. Him and Chad Wallach were splitting time, and I remember Wallach got off to a horrid start, and his dad was the bench coach. It was just an ugly situation. But Holiday had to play a lot in 2018, I believe in 2019 as well. So that was kind of an important signing for Miami.
Yeah, and then I guess some other notable names I'm seeing here. We have Yadiel Rivera. He was pretty bad overall. There's no other way to say it. He had his moments as well. And then there's Drew Nziski. I do remember this name. I think he made his debut. Was it against the Giants, if I'm correct? but he was, I guess, one of those guys many were talking about. He would be pretty good.
Yeah, no, honestly, about Rucinski, I couldn't tell you, but I remember Yadiel Rivera got so much playing time in spring training in 2018 and 2019, I think it was, and he got a lot of playing time in the big leagues in the regular season, and that guy could not hit with a tennis racket. It was so frustrating seeing him hit eighth every single day, but that he did have some walk-offs, as you guys can see on the screen. He had, I think, a walk-off sac fly and a walk-off laser single to right center at one point, so he had some moments for sure.
And now that I'm thinking of it, another bright spot about that season was Harlan Garcia. He was really good. He started. He was a starter at some point, and I was saying, oh, this guy's going to be pretty good. He seems like he could be a pretty good piece in that starting rotation. I don't know if you want to go a little bit into Harlan Garcia and the season he had.
Yeah, Harlan was really good, and they, for some reason, I think Eli even mentioned as well, we couldn't figure out that they just got rid of him for nothing, if I'm not mistaken. I think they gave up on him really soon. They think they designated him. I don't know if Eli can confirm that for us really quick, but yeah, that was a very peculiar move that they just got rid of him. I think it was post 2019, if I'm not mistaken, but that definitely was a bright spot in the 2018 season.
And then another move here is the start of the Chad Wallach era. He was claimed off the Cincinnati Reds. We see how that's worked out. You told me this the other day. I think the first question they asked Jeter was that they were going to pick up the contract of Ichiro, right? And he elected free agency that year. So very interesting there.
Yeah, that was funny. That was in the inaugural press conference of Sherman and Jeter. One report, it might have been Barry Jackson. I think it was Barry Jackson. He asked him, like, oh, Ichiro has a thing, has a option. Are you going to pick it up? And he's like, it's my first day, guys. I'm not going to answer that question. That's when I knew that shit was going to hit the fan. And
then another name I could remember here is Javi Guerra, Elieser. This was the season they got him from the Rule 5. Mm-hmm. They made the fire sale began on December 14th when they traded Ozuna for that incredible that nice haul that we got back, which just turned into Jazz Chisholm and some other guys too. So I don't know if you want to get into, I guess, some of those players and mentioned, like Javi Guerra. There was Elieser, who we spoke about, so we don't get too much into him. They also released Edison Volquez, who was one of the most random no-hitters I think we've seen as well.
Yeah, he threw a no-hitter against the Diamondbacks. One actually fascinating name that I remember they signed was Jacob Turner, that was his second stint with Miami. Miami traded Infante and Anibal Sanchez to Detroit for Turner, Brian Flynn, and Rob Brantley, I think it was. And Turner was like, a top draft pick, a top prospect, and he just never panned out for reasons I don't know why. And then, after going around the majors, Miami took a flyer on him again out of the bullpen, and he sucked again, and then he went to the Nationals. But I remember Jacob Turner's second stint with Miami. Neither of them generated much results, but that was a name to remember for sure.
He played 4 games, and he had a 15.88 ERA. He was horrid. There's another way to say it. In 2012, he was 1-4. He had a 3.38 ERA. And then he gets dealt right back to Detroit that same season. Right, he got released.
Yeah,
he was right before the Javi Guerra signing. And I'm just going through the
transaction page.
The transactions page. Yeah, there's so many names that you just look at and you're like, who are these guys? Because the Marlins signed a lot of guys.
Yeah, Ortega had some at bats with Miami that year as well. And
Riley Mann was assigned to the Marlins. That's another name to keep in mind. Cameron Maben making a second stint with the Marlins.
Brian Anderson. Scott Van Slyke was an NRI, and I think there was 2 home runs in opening day of spring training, and one of them was a grand slam or something, and he just never made the team, which is weird because he was, someone that Miami could have used.
And was this the season of Peter O'Brien as well when he came up in 2018? That's another. He was Mr. September.
He was Mr. September, and everyone was saying he's starting first baseman. And he had a horrid spring training. Garrett Cooper beat him out, luckily, and so Garrett Cooper was the starter in 2019.
Yeah, Peter O'Brien is currently now in the DR, if I'm correct. So he played with guys like Brian De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez this season in the team that they are, Los Toros. So, yeah, and Eli's going to show us the tweet. Yeah, there it is. Peter O'Brien living his best life in the Dominican Winter League. He's played well. I mean, there's no other way to say it. He's played well in the Dominican League, and I guess we could say good for him.
Yeah, He's got power. That's about it.
Another name I'm seeing now, Isaac Galloway. He had an interesting story. He was pretty good for the Marlins in the very, very short stint, but I think he was up there in age, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you know what? Isaac Galloway, he has a great name. Isaac Galloway, I think he had 10 years in the minors, something like that, and he finally got his chance because he was with the New Orleans Zephyrs for a while and Baby Cakes, and he just never got a shot. He finally did get a chance, and he played some solid center field. I think he hit his first career home run, or maybe not, but Isaac Galloway was a cool one. I remembered his name for a while for obvious reasons, but he's a cool guy who didn't, obviously
he hit 3 homers in 2018. He didn't hit one in 2019. So
yeah, that's why.
And now that I think of it, this was the final year. 2018 was the final year of the old Marlins logo. So they didn't rebrand until 2019. There's so much to, I guess, talk about 2018 when you look at it. I'm just looking through that transactions page. Monte Harrison I think that was the start of his time in the Marlins. Zach Gallen was a non-roster invite. Jordan Yamamoto didn't come in 2018, but he came into 2019.
All those guys were, every player acquired in those big trades and the Yelich, Ozuna, Stan trades, all those guys' first year in the organization was 2018, Yamamoto included. They were all in the minor leagues. The only ones that made their debuts that year, Miami debuts in the big leagues, was Brinson. I think Sandy pitched a little bit later in the season. But other than that, those are the only guys to make their debuts at Marlins Park anyway.
I think you're going to hate me for the name I'm about to say, but Wayne Chen was a Marlin. He was placed on the 10-day disabled list. Not a good stint with Miami. Nothing to say the least. I think a lot of ups and downs. He had a great relation with Jose Fernandez, though.
Yeah, another Scott Boras client who, tricked Laurie into giving him that 5th year for $80 million, which is crazy. But yeah, he never amounts to anything. So, and I'll never forget that they started him on opening day in 2016 instead of Jose against a right-handed heavy Detroit Tigers lineup. And of course he got racked. That was just frustrating how many starts Wei and Chen got.
I still don't understand why they started Chen over Fernandez, but
it was because Jose was coming off TJ and they were trying
okay.
But it still made no sense because Jose pitched the second game of the season, so I don't know.
Yeah. 2018, Sandy did pitch. He pitched 6 games. I'm trying to find the actual stats here. Oh, here they are. He pitched 6 games. He went 2-3, 3.44 ERA, 34 innings pitched. He gave up 3 homers. Pretty solid. 30 strikeouts. He had a FIP of 4.75. So, yeah, Sandy did make, I guess, his Marlins debut at the time. I saw him in 2019, the season after. It was the game against the Mets. I know Eli has a gif to that. Yeah, did we see Mags in that season, 2018, or no? I don't think we did. If anything, it must have been very, very little. But Brian Ellington was.
I know he made his major league. Ellington, if it was 100 miles an hour, did nothing. I know Sierra made his major league debut in 2017 for the Cardinals. I don't know if he played in the big leagues in 2018 with Miami.
The Marlins made a lot of moves in Joe Doonan, your buddy Joe Doonan is on the was a big time guy for the Marlins. He was Alex Rodriguez's is a nephew.
Yes.
Yeah. So Joe Doonan was on the Marlins. He still is. Just looking at these names now and just seeing how they've turned out, I think it's what's most interesting, I guess we could say.
Yeah, because that's we're into year 5 of the new Sherman Jeter era, and 2018 was the first year, and so now we're going into year 5. You would hope there's a lot of differences for the better, and which there are. You look at that starting rotation, which is Urania, Chen, Richards, Straley, Smith, to comparing to what it is now, and team really has improved, but it hasn't exactly translated into playoff appearances quite yet, other than one. But we'll see how 2022 plays out.
I feel horrible not mentioning this name, but Martin Prado was in the Marlins. This was his second to last season on the team. He played 54 games, so he was injured through most of it. Yeah. He had 209 plate appearances. He had 48 hits. He hit 1 homer, and then he had a 244 batting average, 287 OBP, 307 slugging, 592 OPS. I think at this point, the role that Miggy has now is what Martin Prado had on that Marlins team. I don't know if you would agree with me, Isaac.
Yeah, similar. Definitely similar. Prado was obviously a lot more tenured than Rojas is now. Prado, was one hell of a hitter his entire career, especially with the Braves. But yeah, eventually you will see Rojas, sort of take that captain's cap. He has the unofficial cap now. So maybe like in a couple of years, you can see him have that sort of role that Prado did have.
Yep. And some other interesting games, and then we'll move on to the final, I guess, topic. Dan Straley was a Marlin. Was that the season they cut him in the middle of spring training? Was that after in 2019? I'm pretty sure it's 2019.
I believe so. Yeah, Straley pitched in the big leagues in 2018.
Straley was pretty good for the Marlins. I mainly remember him for his good hitting. He had some moments there, and I know in Cincinnati he had a good moment where he hit. I think he liked it. He was one of those guys who took that seriously. Odrisa Spain was a Marlin. Nit Wickren, JT Riddle. He was a highly he was a guy who many thought he would be pretty good, or he would result into something. At least I was at the time. Wasn't a big follower.
Nick Wickren was another guy that they sort of, I think he's with Cleveland now. He was another guy that they sort of gave up on kind of quickly, even though he had tremendous minor league numbers. He was a closer in his minor league career, and he made his major league debut with Miami, and they sort of gave up on him kind of quickly. So that was a big name as well. He was a top 30 prospect at some point too.
He is currently a Cleveland Guardian. So yeah, he was with the Marlins since 2016. He played 3 seasons. In that final season, he was a 2-1. He was 2-1, 2.94 ERA. 33 innings pitched. He didn't save any games, but he had 31 strikeouts. This guy was good. There's no other way to say it. He was really good. The Marlins gave up on him. Maybe where would you see him now? I mean, the bullpen would be a lot better.
He'd be in the bullpen.
And another guy I really, I guess, wanted to talk about to end it off is JT Riddle. He was someone who was up and down with the Marlins. He played a long time with them too. So that's the final one. He's currently on the Twins. So in that 2018 season, he played 102 games. He was a 231 batting average. He had 9 homers, 71 hits. And I don't know if there's any last touch-ups you want to have on the 2018 Miami Marlins, and then we'll get into the final segment.
Yeah, no, Riddle was interesting. He had that big moment in 2017. He had that walk-off home run against the Mets where the kid hits it out. But he was just, a very limited player offensively. We thought he might be like a high average sort of kind of contact guy, but he didn't get on base enough, didn't slug. They tried him out in center field for a little bit, and that didn't really work out. So, they moved on from him. And just to touch on anything in 2018, that was Dietrich's and Bohr's sort of last hoorah with Miami, which was interesting because they had some nice moments with Miami, especially Bohr in 2017 in the Derby and everything. But that 2018 season, I don't know which one was worse, that one or 2019 or 2021. They were all pretty bad, but 2018 was just sort of like the beginning of the new regime. So other than that, I think we touched on everything significant of that season.
Yeah, and this isn't even loading. Forget it. Let's move on to the final, I guess, usual thing that we do on the show, which is the random Marlin of the day. So we're gonna start it off with you, Isaac, and I know you have your guy.
Yeah, no, mine's a fun one. He didn't have the longest tenure in Miami. El Caballo, as Tommy Hunt likes to call him, El Caballo, El Gano. He was traded to Miami close to the trade deadline while Miami was playing Milwaukee in 2012. And 2012 was the first season that MLB instituted the second wildcard team. So that sort of put like middle ground teams at an awkward position, saying, okay, look, there's a second wildcard team. Maybe we have more of a chance than we did last year. And that's exactly the predicament that Miami found themselves in. So what they needed that year was offense, and they had Gabby Sanchez at first base. And as you guys know, Carlos Lee's a first baseman, and Gabby Sanchez could not hit the ball with a tennis racket if he tried. He was struggling so hard, which was weird because he was coming off an all-star season in 2011, I believe it was. And he was a homegrown guy, a UM guy who we thought was going to be really good. Gabby Sanchez never really flourished in 2012. So Miami needed some offense, especially at first base. They traded for Carlos Lee, for Matt Dominguez, I think it was, and Rob Rasmussen. And in the same day that they traded for him, Gabby Sanchez had the biggest home run of his life, tying the game in the 9th inning against Milwaukee in a huge series, in the middle of July series, off John Axford, the great closer at the time. And right after the game, that season was televised on the franchise, and they showed Michael Hill, Larry Beinfest, and Ozzie Guillen saying, listen, Gabby, thank you so much for that home run, but we're sending you down. We traded for Carlos Lee, and Carlos Lee had some decent moments. He was good for Miami, but he wasn't enough to put them over the top and put them into playoff contention. So then Miami continued to sell off that year, trading Hanley, trading Infante, trading Anibal, trading a lot of guys. But Carlos Lee was a very random Marlin who had had an interesting second half with Miami in 2012. It was.
He that was his final season in the MLB. So he had a 243 batting average, 330. He played 81 games, 71 hits. He had 4 homers. So that was his final season as a major leaguer, from what Baseball Reference is showing. So yeah, any last words on the guy?
It was different for him to hit in the ginormous Marlins Park at the time, where there was no fences in. It was 418 with a 35-foot wall in center field. It was tough for him to go from Minute Maid Park and the Crawford box seats, his right-handed hitting guy, to Marlins Park. So I think that's something that Miami didn't really take into consideration. But he was a good hitter, and he was an upgrade over Gabby Sanchez the rest of the way, but it wasn't anywhere near enough because just everyone else was not performing.
Yeah, so my random Marlin is a guy who was with the team for 4 years, but he was pretty bad. Tomás Telis. He was a catcher. He didn't flourish with the Marlins too much. His best season, I guess you could say, was 2016, but he was only in 10 games. He batted 308. But I mean, you could connect this to 2018, which was his final year with the Marlins. He had a 207 batting average, 31 plate appearances, 23 games, 6 hits, no homers. During his 4 years with the Marlins, he hit 1 home run, which yikes. And he had a total of 14 hits, RBIs. So it was bad. He was not good with the Marlins. His best season overall, where he played the most, was 2017. He was a 240 batting average. He 279 OBP, 346 slugging, 625 OPS. That was his best season because he played the most, and that was the season after. That was the season right before the Laurie era. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit of Tomás Telis here.
Yeah, a little switch hitting. I think offensive-minded catcher. He was never the best catcher. I know Alex Ferrer, shout out, Pastier, for loving this guy. He was just someone, I forgot how Miami acquired him. That's someone I totally forgot. He just randomly was there. He was a top 30 prospect guy for some reason. I guess it just sort of says more about the state of the system at the time. But yeah, he was a fun guy. He switch hit and hit. He was a fun guy to follow, but no one of really real significance for Miami in his short tenure.
Yeah, and he's currently with the This is way too funny.
Yeah, Tomás Telis. This guy, Alex, loved Tomás Telis. He even did a nice little voiceover of his first career triple, I think it was.
Yeah, Telis is currently, I think, on the Twins, if I'm correct. But he did have his moment in the DR. I think there was this clip of a fight that went, and he was involved in it. So I think that's the last I heard about the guy. That's the only reason why I chose him for this one. But if you guys have any, he's not even in the MLB right now. So just so you guys don't know, it says he's on the Twins. That's the picture showing me on the Baseball Reference. But it looks like he hasn't played another at bat after that. If you guys have any other, player random Marlins you guys want to mention, and you two tell us in the comments. You could also follow Isaac at Isaac Azout and me at Kevin_Barral. So you could guys ask us questions. I think we pretty much stopped getting questions from you guys. I don't know why. No, it's my bad completely. It's just something I forgot. But I'll definitely be grabbing those questions out since there's a lockout. There's scarce things we could cover, but yeah, Isaac, any last words on 2018 Marlins, or I guess anything we covered today?
No, definitely nothing else on the 2018 Marlins. Just everyone have a safe New Year's. It's going to get crazy. I think you'll be hearing this on January 1st. So we'll ring you in with the new year. Hopefully there'll be some more developments with the lockout soon. Probably not January 1st, but late January, early February is the hope. And yeah, we'll be still coming to you bi-weekly for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, next episode is gonna be a fun one. I'm definitely excited. I'm not gonna say who the guest is, but it's gonna be a packed episode. This one won't be a short one. I think it'll go maybe over an hour because of how much we could cover for that episode. But yeah, from me and Isaac Azout, we'll see you guys on the next one, and peace out.
We gotta end it off right.